What I want to share with you now is something that has completely changed the way I look at the world around me and the life that we all live each day. I want to pause here and invite you, my dear friends, to share your thoughts in the comments. What do you feel when you hear stories like this? Do they make you think more deeply about life, about faith, and about where we are all heading as a people? In that place where the darkness felt so thick it almost seemed alive, fear wrapped itself around me like heavy chains that I could not break. My heart was heavy, my breath was hard, and I felt as though the weight of despair would crush me. Everything felt empty and hopeless, but in the middle of that emptiness, something happened that made the whole world stop. A light suddenly broke through the darkness, and it was not like any light I had ever seen before. It was brighter than the sun, so bright that my eyes could not bear to look at it directly, yet it did not harm me. It was a light that carried both power and peace at the same time, something so holy that I could not stand in front of it. My legs grew weak, and I fell to my knees, trembling as though the very presence of heaven had entered the place where I was. The light was more than just light, it carried the presence of something far greater, and in that presence, I felt small but deeply seen. It was as if everything about me was uncovered, yet instead of shame, I felt love and truth pressing into my soul. From inside that light, I could feel God Himself. It was not like hearing words with my ears, but like suddenly knowing a truth so strong and so deep that it shook my entire being. In that moment, I understood that I was being given something important, something I could never keep to myself. God was showing me a vision that was not only for me but for the world, and He made it clear that time was running short, and His people needed to be ready. Then the light moved, and suddenly I was no longer standing in the darkness. I found myself in the middle of a strange city, one larger and more advanced than any place I had ever seen with my own eyes. The buildings reached so high into the sky that they seemed to touch the heavens themselves. They shone like mirrors, cold and perfect, with sharp lines and flawless surfaces. Everything looked clean, ordered, and controlled, but there was no warmth in it. The streets below were filled with people moving in every direction, yet something about them was deeply unsettling. They did not smile, they did not speak, they did not even look at one another. Their faces were blank, empty of thought and feeling, as if their souls had been taken away. They moved like machines, doing only what they were told, without question or hesitation. The silence of the city was overwhelming. It was not the silence of peace, but the silence of emptiness. Above it all, higher than the towers, there was a strange symbol. I did not recognize it, but I could feel its power. It was not a symbol of truth or love, but of control, and it pulled the eyes of everyone below as if it demanded their worship. Even without sound, its presence filled the air with command. As I looked upon this place, sadness filled my heart, and confusion weighed on my mind. I wondered what this city was, why I was seeing it, and what it meant. Then God gave me understanding. He showed me that this city had not been made in His name, or in His will. It was the creation of men who had turned away from Him, men who thought they could build a perfect world without God. On the outside, it looked strong, wise, and advanced, but deep within, it was built on lies. It was not a city of freedom, but a prison. It was the world of the new order. People lived under the promise of safety, unity, and order, but they had given up their souls for it. They had traded love and truth for comfort and control, and they no longer even saw what they had lost. The vision changed again, and now I saw a long table in a dark room. Around it sat powerful people whose faces were hidden in the shadows. They spoke carefully and softly, using words like peace, unity, and a better future, but the truth behind their voices was something far different. Their words carried no light. Instead, I felt the presence of evil hiding behind every promise. They were not building a better world for the good of people, but building a system of control to take power over every soul. These were the leaders of the New World Order, men and women who had worked step by step, quietly shaping minds, changing laws, and guiding the world without most people even realizing it. Their goal was not peace, but complete control, and they were willing to destroy everything that stood in their way. I was then shown how they would reach their goal. I saw long lines of ordinary men and women waiting quietly. Each person stood with tired faces, waiting to receive marks on their foreheads and hands. Without this mark, they were told they could not buy food, they could not work, they could not even survive in the world that had been created. Many were afraid, and so they gave in. They told themselves it was just a small thing, only a way to stay alive, but what they did not see was that this was not just a mark. It was a sign of loyalty to the new order, a surrender of their freedom, their faith, and their soul. Those who refused the mark were pushed aside, treated as criminals, left to suffer without food or shelter. My heart broke as I watched, and I cried out inside myself, asking why so many gave in so easily. And the answer I felt from the Lord was painful to hear. People had grown proud. They trusted more in themselves and in the promises of men than in God. They wanted comfort more than truth. They no longer prayed, no longer sought God's voice, and because of this, they could not see the trap that was placed before them. Then I was shown something even more painful. I saw the church, the holy place that had once stood as a light for the world. Many churches were now closed and empty, their walls broken and their altars abandoned. Some had been taken over and twisted into places where lies of the new order were spread in place of God's truth. It was heartbreaking to see the faith that once stood strong now weakened in so many places. But even in this sadness, I saw something beautiful. Small groups of believers still met together in secret. They prayed with all their hearts, they read the Bible, they encouraged one another. They were afraid of the dangers around them, but their faith gave them strength. These were the remnant, the faithful ones who would not bow to the new order. They were few, but their light was powerful. They were hunted, mocked, and hated, yet they kept going. They carried the truth even when it cost them everything. I cried out again in my spirit, asking God what could be done, how this could be stopped. The answer I received was filled with hope and strength. God told me to speak, to warn, and to tell His people to return to Him now while there is still time. He reminded me that this battle is not one of weapons or armies, but a battle of the heart. The enemy may appear clever, but he is not stronger than God. Those who hold fast to faith, prayer, and truth will stand, even when everything else falls. The Lord made it clear that His people must wake up, repent of their sins, and cling to Him now before it is too late. Then the vision widened, and I saw the earth itself begin to break apart. Chaos spread across nations. Great earthquakes shook the ground, storms tore through cities, fires burned forests and homes, governments fell, and wars spread across the lands. Food became scarce, and people grew desperate. Nations that once stood strong crumbled in hatred and fear. But even in the middle of this great pain, I saw small groups of believers who continued to trust in God. They prayed together, they shared what little they had, they encouraged each other, and their faith shone like fire that could not be put out. God looked at these faithful ones with love, and I felt His smile upon them. He said that this was what He desired, people who loved Him more than comfort, people who trusted Him more than their fears, people who would stay faithful no matter what they faced. The vision began to fade, but before it ended, I felt the Lord speak again. His voice was gentle yet filled with power. He told me not to be afraid, because though the days ahead would be hard, He is the beginning and the end, and His promises are always true. He said He would never abandon those who belong to Him, and He reminded me to speak boldly and tell everyone to be ready. Those who remain faithful to the very end will be saved. When I woke up, I was trembling. My whole body was covered in sweat, and my heart was shaking with the weight of what I had seen. I fell to my knees and cried, because I knew this vision was not only for me, but for anyone who would listen. It was not meant to scare, but to awaken. The new order I had seen was not something far away, it was already beginning. But the message carried hope as well. It is not too late. If people turn back to God, He will still forgive, He will still guide, and He will still protect. But if we wait too long, the time may run out, and the door may close.